Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Life of a Business Manager podcast. This is the podcast where we break down the real world skills that every business manager needs to succeed. I'm your host, Sina Chan, and today we're diving into a topic that will feel very familiar to anyone working in operations or leadership right now. And that is how business managers learn to do more with less. Meaning, business managers spend much of their time balancing competing priorities, leading teams, managing operations, solving problems, and still delivering results, often with limited resources. So, in industries such as healthcare or service based businesses, you're dealing with tight budgets, staffing shortages, and rising expectations are just part of your daily grind. Many managers regularly hear phrases such as, "We don't have the budget," or "short staff," or "Can you just make it work?" Yet, despite all of these constraints, the expectation remains that the work still gets done and your team stays supported. That's why today's episode, we're going to focus on a skill every experienced business managers out there eventually develops and learn, which is learning how to do more with less. We're going to talk about the reality of doing more with less situations, then jump into 5 strategies, and of course, close the episode with how to process all of this information, which requires being creative, having strong leadership, and smart prioritization. So let's get into the episode. Okay, everyone, let's just get started with segment 1, which is the reality of the situation, meaning more expectations and fewer resources. Let's just start with setting the stage for you, because that is the reality of all business managers out there, is that you're expected to do more with fewer resources. And if I'm just being real for a second here, this is the part of the job that no one really prepares you for. Because being a business manager today often means operating in a constant state of do more with less, meaning more expectations, tighter budgets, leaner teams, and shorter timelines. And the challenging part is that expectations don't go down when the resources do. Leadership is still pushing for the term smart growth. I don't know if anyone has heard of that term, but I've heard it way too many times this year. And because I work in healthcare, customers or patients still expect the high quality service that you provide. Your team still needs the support and the direction from you, though. But the reality is, again, you're working with fewer people, limited funding, and less time to get it all done. And I thought this was a temporarily shift, but this has become the work culture for most organizations. Organizations are becoming more efficiency driven, roles are expanding, teams are being asked to stretch further than they've ever been stretched before. And as a business manager, you're right in the middle of all of this. And you're trying to translate these big picture goals that you hear daily into your daily execution of the role while balancing all the constraints that you're dealing with that also don't align with the expectations. It can feel very overwhelming. And if you're not intentional about how you approach it, you will not succeed in this role. But here's the shift. Successful business managers don't just try to keep up with the pressure, they learn to navigate through the pressure. They prioritize relentlessly, streamline processes, and focus on what actually moves the project. Because doing more with less isn't about working more hours, which I know we all are working 80 plus hours at this point. It's about working smarter, making better decisions, and leading with some sense of clarity. And that's a reality. But once you accept the reality, you can start leading your team into success. Okay, everyone, now that we know the reality and the expectations of being a business manager, doing more with less, let's go into segment 2, which is strategy number 1, and that is tightening your priorities. When resources start shrinking, priorities have to be tightened, because one of the biggest mistakes managers make is trying to keep everything running exactly the same as it is before. And the reality is you can't. When time, budget, or staffing becomes limited, something has to give. And a helpful way to prioritize is by asking yourself 3 simple questions. For example, what directly impacts the revenue or the cost within that organization? What directly impacts the safety or the quality within that organization? And what directly impacts the staff morale? If a task or a project doesn't fall into one of those categories, it may need to be paused, simplified, or even eliminated. Not everything deserves the same amount of time and energy, and high performing business managers understand leveraging out the priorities. They focus their efforts on the few things that actually create the biggest impact. So instead of asking yourself, how do we do all of this? A better question is, what percentage of the work creates the majority of the results? When you focus on those priorities, you're not only protecting your outcomes, but you also protect your team from unnecessary burnout and duplication of work. So when resources shrink, priorities need to be tightened for it to work for you as a business manager. Okay, everyone, now that you know how to tighten your priorities, let's go into segment 3, which is strategy number 2, and that is to focus on the process before people. So, this meaning many leaders assume that when teams are overwhelmed, the solution is simply just to hire more. And sometimes that's true, but oftentimes the real issue is inefficient systems and unclear workflows. So, before adding headcount, it's important to take a step back and evaluate the process. Ask questions like, are tasks being duplicated? Are there too many layers of approval slowing things down? Are teams constantly solving the same problems over and over again? And is there manual work that could be simplified or automated? In many operational environments, especially in healthcare, and that's all I could really speak to, teams aren't overwhelmed because they lack talent. They're overwhelmed because processes aren't clear or efficient. So when business managers improve workflows and streamline how to get the work done, they free up capacity for the entire team. And that's one of the most effective way to do more with the same resources. So process improvement isn't just about efficiency. It's one of the most powerful cost-saving tools as a business manager out there. And when leaders say we need more staff, sometimes they're right, but often you need better system. Okay, everyone, let's go into segment 4, which is strategy 3. And that is to seek to develop leaders, not dependents. So if everything has to come through you, you always feel stretched thin as a business manager. One of the most powerful ways to do more with less is to develop leaders within your team. And that meaning teaching decision making framework, clarifying who has the authority for what, empowering your frontline leaders, and letting go of the micromanagement culture. So when your supervisors can handle 70% of the issues that's going on their own, you've effectively multiplied your capacity without adding more payroll, as in more headcount. So strong business managers build independent, capable teams by focusing on leadership development. You free yourself to focus on the priorities that matter most while your team keep things running smoothly. If everything has to come through you, you will always feel stretched thin. And that is the reason why it's best to work with your current team and see the talent that you have within your team. Now, obviously, if you don't see any talent within your team, then obviously you need a new team. But most of the time, you have a couple of good seeds there that you can work with and that you can develop into leaders. Okay, everyone, now that you've developed your teams, let's go into segment 5, which is why financial literacy is your superpower as a business manager. I know it sounds cheesy, but as a business manager, you're not just managing people or processes, you're managing resources. And at the core of all that, that is money. When you truly understand the financial side of the business, you stop making poor decisions and you start influencing people around you. Financial literacy gives you leverage as a business manager. It allows you to speak the language of the leadership team, such as budgets, margins, ROI, cost drivers. I'm sure some of you have heard of all of that, all of those terms. Instead of being handed all these constraints that you can't do, you can challenge the leadership team and reshape them and even find opportunities with them. You're no longer just hearing terms such as we need to cut costs. You can ask them, where do we cut costs without impacting outcomes? That's a good question. Or you can ask them, where should we invest more in? It also helps you make smarter, faster decisions day to day. Whether you're dealing with staffing issues, supplies, or new initiatives, you can weigh in the financial impact alongside the operational needs. That's how you move a reactive decision to a strategic decision. And here's the key: leaders trust people who understand the numbers. When you can back up your ideas with some financial insight, analysis, your voice carries more weight in the room. You're not just managing operations anymore, you're helping drive the business. So if you're looking to level up as a business manager, this is it. Learn the numbers, understand the why behind them, because once you do, you don't just manage the business, You help shape the future of the organization. And executives listen differently when you speak in numbers. So just keep that in mind. Okay, everyone, now that we've talked about understanding financial literacy and how you can leverage it, let's go into segment 6, which is the last strategy, number 5. And that is, in my opinion, probably the most important: protecting your energy and not just your time. So we've all been there. We're all doing more with less, and it's super exhausting. You aren't just managing tasks every day, you're balancing impossible expectations from everyone around you. You're absorbing pressure from above, and you're trying to shield your team from all the chaos that's going on within the organization. You are making 1,000 decisions a day. But the thing is, if you don't protect your own energy, you're going to stop being strategic and you're going to start being reactive. And when you're being reactive, you're not going to make smart decisions. And it means you're just going to put out fires just to put out the fires. So, when I mean, what does protecting your energy actually looks like, here are some recommended suggestions that you can use to protect your energy. So the first one is to block non-negotiable thinking time on your calendar. I think I've talked about this in previous episodes before, but block out your calendar for your time in order for you to catch up on your work so you don't feel overwhelmed. That is protecting your energy and your time. The second is learning to say no without the guilt trip. I'm always the yes person, so I understand. As a business manager, you want to help everybody, every single department within the organization, but you need to say no without feeling guilty. It's okay to say no, and people will eventually move on. And the biggest one is refusing to solve problems that actually belong to someone else. This means everyone within the organization gets paid to do their job. You don't need to solve everyone's problem. You need to solve yours and the team that you manage. So make sure you do that first before you go and help any other department, because you are paid to do your job as well. It's okay for you not to do someone else's job that belongs to them. So just keep that in mind. And just to close it out, you have to set boundaries around these types of urgency culture that we're all living in. And I get it. I'm living in it too, because here's the truth: people don't really talk about it. But when business managers are burnt out, the entire team will follow and the performance will drop. So it's a true domino effect. I truly believe that. And we just have to take care of our energy and our time at the end of the day. Okay, everyone, let's go to segment 7, which is great to come after segment 6 because we are talking about the mindset shift. So, we know that as business managers, we're doing more with less isn't just a phase. It's the environment, it's the current environment that we all operate in right now. Expectations keep rising, but resources don't always follow. You're balancing budgets, supporting your team, hitting performance goals, and still being asked to find ways to improve current state. And the pressure is real. We all feel it. But here's where the mindset shift comes in. If you only see this as a limitation for yourself, it will always feel like you're falling behind. The most effective business managers choose to see the situation differently. For example, they treat the constraints that are in front of them not as a workload problem. So instead of asking yourself, like, how do I actually get everything done? Ask yourself what actually matters and focus on what actually matters daily. So then you're focusing on projects, requests that actually move forward. Effective business managers get clear on their priorities. They focus on high impact work. They stop trying to do everything and they start making intentional decisions about where their time, energy, and resources go. Because we all know it, you can't do more with less if it all depends on you. So you need to start building up your team, delegating effectively, and trusting others within your team to step up because it's not optional anymore. You need your teams to help you produce and be successful in the role. Just because you're doing more doesn't mean you're doing what actually matters. This work culture isn't slowing down for anyone, but when you shift your mindset, you stop feeling like you're constantly being reactive to all the requests that you're getting. And you actually start leading with clarity and a purpose. So that's how you can grow successful in your role, is the mindset shift. Okay, everyone, now that we've talked about all the strategies in regards to doing more with less in this episode, let's go into segment 8, which is what are the 4 framework of steps that you could take on tomorrow? So the first step is to Clarify your non-negotiables. So be ruthless here. And when I mean be ruthless, I mean like really get to the point. What are your must-haves? And if you work in healthcare, such as myself, usually it's safety, it's compliance, it's regulations, it's revenue, it's Medicare charges, whatever it is that's important for you. If this project or request doesn't touch any of those non negotiables, then it's up for debate for you to even do that work. Step two, cancel out the low impact noise. For example, audit your calendar, audit your reports. If you're doing something twice or sitting in a meeting that could be an email, eliminate it or just simplify it. Step three, fix the current system before you hire another person on your team. Adding more people to a broken promise doesn't solve the problem. It actually makes the problem more expensive because it's an additional headcount. So straighten out your team and your process improvement first, and then you could bring on a new team member if you have the budget for it. Step four, push decision making down to your team members. Empower your team to feel confident in order to make smart strategic decisions. Stop being the bottleneck for every single minor decision. Do not micromanage your team. It doesn't go anywhere. I've never seen it work out. This is just from my experience, but you need to be able to trust and train your teams in order for them to make decisions without you. So that's something to think about. So those are the four frameworks that I recommend working on. Again, this is just from my experience and what I think is good. Do your research, figure out exactly what works for you in order for you to handle the current work culture right now. Okay, everyone, as we wrap up this episode, as a reminder, I want to make it clear that I'm not here to promote doing more with less culture. This episode is really to help all the business managers out there deal with the current state of work right now. We're not here promoting working over 80 hours or dealing with poor management or taking advantage of employees. We're here to help manage the current situation of most organizations at this time, unfortunately. And if you need support, please reach out if you have any questions. Again, thank you so much for tuning into Life of a Business Manager podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with another manager who can feel the pain of doing more with less. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have any questions about the role, suggestions for future topics, or stories of your own, I'd love to hear from you. You can find my email in the show notes below. As always, thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, bye everyone. Hi everyone. Just a reminder, the content provided in our podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with appropriate professionals before making any business decisions based on the information provided in this podcast. We do not endorse any products or services mentioned unless stated in any of our episodes. Thank you so much for listening.